Recording Satsang session on 27th March 1983. Book I, Canto 5, Conclusion. Savitri.
We concluded last time our study of the fifth canto of the first book, the Book of Beginnings. It will be worthwhile to summarize the contents of the fifth canto before we proceed to the next book. As you will recall, in the third canto, Sri Aurobindo speaks of the yoga of the soul's release. Ashwapati, he finds his psychic identity and then expands his consciousness step by step till the island ego joins its continent. He becomes universal. His heart, his mind become one with the universal heart and mind, and both the static and the dynamic aspects of the self, the cosmic self, establish themselves in his consciousness. In the fourth canto, there is a description of the secret knowledge that Ashwapati had, the first among time-born men. And now in the fifth canto, after completing his spiritualization, both in the individual and the universal aspect, Ashwapati rises into a new dimension, and that is the spiritual dimension above the mind. In our yoga also, we have three main movements. First, the realization of the individual divine. The divine as stationed in our own being. Next, cosmicization, increasing expansion of our consciousness till it becomes one with the universal consciousness. And the third movement is one of ascent of consciousness in realms above the mind, known as spiritual consciousness. You go systematically from the thinking mind to the higher mind, from the higher mind to the illumined mind, thence to the intuitive mind, thence to the overmind, thence to the supermind, and thereafter to the worlds of Ananda, Chit and Sat. These constitute the aspect of manifestation of the Supreme Reality. We are concerned with the manifestation and not for the moment of the unmanifest. Now, Ashwapati, his mission to rise above is described as the yoga of the spirit's freedom and greatness. The canto begins with a description of how the curtain of his mind lifts for a while, and he enters there where the wings of glory brood, and all that the gods know is there forever known. He shares the cord of mind which ties him to the earth heart and enters into a domain where all knowledge is self-evident. There he finds the book of knowledge with this index page, the knowledge of the universe. There also he finds nature's correspondence with the soul, the agreements entered into by nature, between nature and soul. Soul agrees to certain conditions put by nature, and he also sees God's covenant to the night, God's covenant to the night. That is, in the course and for the purpose of his manifestation, God enters into a certain understanding with the dark night. He agrees to conceal himself, to work behind the veil, and let night, the darkness, prevail. He also sees that what appears to us as fate is the chain of a seeing will. There is a will that sees everything, and in the act of seeing, it determines what is to happen. And that sequence of the steps of the seeing will is fate. So, there is a divine will, a divine sanction behind what we think to be a mechanical fate. Fate is not mechanical. It has been worked out by our energies and sanctioned by a higher will. Once these two steps are taken, the mechanical operation of the consequences, that is what we call at our end destiny or free will. And then he sees in the vast void the presence of an omniscience, overlooking all, guiding all, leading all. He is an all-knowledge, a being of knowledge of everything, past, present, future. And after seeing the whole panorama of the occult world, a great hope rises in his heart. A will forms that this great world must be brought down here. And he realizes that this world of which he has been a part is very imperfect. Only beginnings are accomplished here. This world of ours is only a world of beginnings. The middle stage and the final stage is not yet. Things are so incomplete, things are so inchoate, that in every success the seed of failure lurks. We think we have succeeded, and in our very contentment with it, in our very self-complacence, there is the seed of future failure. That is why Mother describes success as a greater test than failure. Now, he also realizes, when he sees all these possibilities opening up, that man, with all his imperfections, with all his limitations, can recreate himself and the world around. So he has this immense hope, and he ascends. In his consciousness he rises to meet the infinite, and as he rises, that black inconscient swings its dragon tail and lashes at him, because every moment of ascent, every moment of progress is sought to be arrested and pulled back by the nether forces. So Ashwapati is not an exception. He too is hit, and as he watches, he sees below death spreading like a gate of sleep. In the new perspective of his higher consciousness, death changes its color. When one is involved in death, death is terrible. Death seems to be a terrible ending. But when, like Ashwapati, one rises above and looks at death, it reveals itself in its true colors. It is only a gate of sleep. You pass through that gate to another life. It is a process of life, an entry into a greater life. And Ashwapati further mounts like a cone of fire. He is that intense, that set to his purpose, that without dissipation, without deflection on either side, he goes straight like a cone of fire. And the poet describes that such a case is very rare. Among the thousands and thousands and thousands who live and die, one among the many is chosen by the eye of God. The eye is always on the lookout for those who are ready, for those who can be precipitated into the next stage. But it finds a solitary individual occasionally, now and then. And Ashwapati is one of those who is one of the elect. And as he goes up with all his aspiration, with all his hope, a strong descent leap down. In answer to the ascent, in answer to his evocation, a powerful descent leaps down. And that descent is of a multiple character. It is a descent of might. It has an appearance of a flame. It has the character of an ecstasy, a burning sweetness, not a lulling sweetness, but one that stings you into activity, goads you to further enterprise, further effort, and his mind becomes an empty slate, shorn of all thoughts, all movements. It empties itself and becomes an open slate where the higher hand can write anything. And in that perspective, in that experience of the self, he becomes aware of the vast spaces of the self, not the limited spaces of the finite, but of the self-extension of the vast spaces in which his body, which plays such an important part in our lives on earth, it looks like a wandering shell. It is only a small shell, not stable, not in one place, but drifting. It is only the self that is true, self that is permanent, self that is immutable. And his self, his soul, comes forward and fronts the cosmos as its equal. Is no more afraid of the invasion of the cosmos and oneself being lost in it, but both the soul and the cosmos face each other as equals. And then he finds that there is a secret nature. He finds the secret nature exposed to his gaze, a thing which doesn't happen. The secret gaze never is exposed to human sight, but she is helplessly laid bare to the penetrating sight of Ashwapati. And he sees all her processes, her workings. And then the poet observes, all this world has not just come to be. There is an almighty occultist, creator, who works from behind the veil, weaving this world out of an empty vastness. And alongside, there is also the secret nature, trying to outwie him in her cleverness, in her skill, and both work with an understanding, the almighty occultist and the secret nature. And in all this working, mind is a mediator divinity. Not certainly the mind as we know it, but the mind in its own plane. It mediates between the inconscient depths and the superconscient heights. It links matter with spirit. Sri Aurobindo describes how a single assent of the mind can release energies from matter in its trance. As Ashwapati watches, this nature yields herself, places at his disposal all her powers, all her faculties. Then again the poet describes how the border sovereign is the occult force. Across the border of our physical universe is the kingdom of a force that is occult. And that force is not just concerned with our affairs here, but it canalizes the, the outbreak of the gods. What comes from the way higher gods, we can't bear it in its nakedness. We can't bear it in its direct impact. So this occult force filters it, canalizes it, so that we can see. And as he watches, there is a pile of serried kingdoms, one after another, coming down from the infinite, touching the lowest point, and then ascending. So he watches the whole process of creation. There is a continuous descent of consciousness, and alongside a continuous ascent of the worlds embodied in this, with the consciousness embodied in them. And they rise and rise till he sees the light of Trinity. Trinity, Satchidananda, the highest three worlds of manifestation. It is the supreme consciousness. And from there looks down a reconciling wisdom. In the light of the Trinity, there is a great wisdom overlooking all that goes on. The theme of that wisdom is a mighty oneness. Everywhere it is impressing the truth of oneness, taking up things and harmonizing them in a oneness. And the poet says, there is no more quarrel of truth with truth. Quarrel of truth with falsehood is understandable. But in our world as it is, there is a quarrel of truth with truth, my truth and your truth. We are both fanatical and just don't see in our limited way, mental way of seeing, that there can be two truths, both of which are aspects of a third truth. Above, he says, he sees the seats of the immortals, the higher gods, their stations he visions, and the stupendous gates of the Elo, above the gods, above the immortals, is the one alone. And those gates are stupendous. Thus he watches the deathless countries of the One. There is one truth, one reality, one being. But his countries are many. Manifestations are several. And the manifestation is immortal, continuous. He enters into sunbelts of knowledge, moonbelts of delight. Sun, to denote it, is a flaming knowledge. It lights up everything. It illumines everything. And it gives you that fire, that energy. Moonbelts of delight, cool, at the same time showing pleasant. Those kingdoms of delight, they always go together. And in the process, he broke into another space and time. He goes not only beyond earthly space and earthly time, but the space and time of the lower hemisphere, and enters into the space and time of a subtler and a higher world order. And that is where Ashopati, from being a seeker, becomes traveler of the worlds. He goes on a mission to bring down that higher world, establish that truth on earth below. and he travels from world to world. This book contains about 15 cantos, and they were not there originally when Sri Aurobindo planned Savitri. He explains in his letters to Amal how the whole second book formed itself as he was revising things here. And he says it has gone to unconscionable length. But that is the first time where we have an authentic geography of the cosmos. There may be people who write about their visions, about their experiences, but they are subjective. A theosophist may say something, Swedenborg may write another thing. There may be contradictions. I won't say they are wrong or false accounts. They are true to the persons who experienced it. In their way, they experience things. But there is such a thing as things as they are. Whether you see them or not, they are. Now, it is that description of the worlds as they are that constitutes the second book, which no mortal has given so far. Such a detailed description of the subtle physical world, of the life world, the lower life world, the higher life world, the gods of the lower world, the gods of the higher life. And inter alia he explains why life is maimed on earth. Life should be full of wings and energy. Why it ends up in death. He describes how the whole thing happened. He gives us a peep into the past history. And then from the higher life worlds, he takes us into the mind world, the lower levels and the higher levels, the worlds of the ideal, and then into the world of the self, the psychic world, where it is the center of the world. And thereafter, he takes us to still higher and higher worlds, till after the world of gods, so many gods, we come to the world of two in one, Ardhanarishwara. And behind that, there is the one supreme divine mother who holds her face under a veil. And it is only when he supplicates, he cries out in the agony of his soul, that she just parts half her face. And what he sees is so tremendous that he just falls down prone. Thereafter begins the last canto of this book, the third book, the vision and the boon. We will come to it leisurely. So next time we will begin the book of the Traveller of the Worlds.